we have freedom of speech, but we have amnesia. It's like we forget where we come from or who we are.
Who has forgotten?
I feel like we need to come to a point to realize that actually we can't be as complacent, especially when it comes to freedom. Because freedom can create a redundancy, which the same redundancy has put us where we are. Me having a name, Nicholas, is redundancy of my people not realizing that, you know what? We have been treated badly. Now we are here. Let us move forward.
Just accepting that legacy.
Yeah, and saying, let us move forward.
My thing is, what is forward? Because also forward can't just happen in a vacuum. And I'm when it comes to things like Christianity and a lot of this stuff, I do think they're very problematic in terms of how they have formed our sense of our Africanness. But I also think when we look at Christianity, that's something that we got from English people. And all these English people weren't always Christians either, and they made it and formed it and made it what they wanted it to be and gave it to us and received it wholesale. But I also feel like Africans have owned this Christianity, and I feel like Africans have owned this foreign culture and have owned many of these aspects of these things and turned them into their own thing enough that when you look back, especially even within our times of being colonized and whatever, there are often people making very conscious and calculated choices to adopt certain ways of being. There were kings of Buganda who were taking on like a Christian name because they knew that would lead to an alliance with this other power that would lead to some like geopolitical advantage, I guess. Lawanyoro or
that's what I'm saying. That's all the redundancy I'm talking about.
My thing is saying, and I understand that is problematic and would have been problematic at that point, but I just want to bring attention to the fact that we often talk about ourselves like we have no choice and or agency in making these decisions. And I feel like when it comes to things like even our religions, we own that shit now, you know? Africa now is probably percentage-wise more Christian than the Europe that we got.
Do you know what's so funny?
This religion from, you know.
Where does the
tithe
go?
I think we've probably owned it.
But where does the tithe go? Okay, you're Christian. Christians pay tithe to the institutions they go to. So multiple churches get tithe. Listen to me. Multiple churches get tithe. That's why the born agains are so smart, bro. Man. The born agains are gangsters.
Like Catholics is centralized. Catholics is centralized. For Anglicans, it's a bit more autonomized within like the national church organization. Pentecostal churches are a lot more autonomous. They're almost like independent, like franchise businesses. And like, no, actually the Catholic Church is more like the franchise. The evangelical churches are more like independent businesses.
Yeah, I feel like Anglicans work in the same way, where like Anglican churches get what they get and distribute it within their own churches.
Yeah. Yes, within that territory.
But you do realize that it's a system, right?
Yeah. True.
And who controls the system? Is it you, the consumers? You're saying, we should be proud that we're the biggest consumer, but you give the money. The money doesn't do anything for you apart from exploit you more. That's what I'm saying. The French Revolution, how did it happen, man? The Catholic Church was telling these people, the meek shall inherit the earth. And the Catholic Church was taking the land. These people had to pay back in terms of crops. And even that wasn't enough. And they had to wake up. And they're French. Come on, man.
I would agree with what you're saying, only if we're willing to pass that blame across to the people who deserve it. And I think it's not just the influence of it coming from the start. I think part of it is the fact that like, Christianity for a very long time has had these institutions of power, and yes, it was brought through from colonialists at the time through evangelicals and people like that who wanted to spread the religion whatever fucking ways they wanted to. But by the time they got here and we adopted it, we have to also accept the fact that like over time, we ourselves have abused those systems and have allowed them to become super exploitative in a way that like Ugandans also haven't stood in the way of that shit. And true say,
it's Ugandans who are in those systems. It's Ugandans in those systems. There isn't a white man at the top of the pyramid.
There doesn't need to be.
I think some of the wildest passes I've seen here aren't the ones coming in. There's some of the guys here who call themselves prophet God knows what, where you're like, that is abusing the word of God. And I'm not religious at all, but even I see that and I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Let me tell you what those guys are. Let me tell you what those guys are. Those guys are corn. But do you know what's so important? They're artists. And that's the... And
The most important, bro.
Listen, and that's the point. And that's actually what we have done is we've made a full circle.
They do it with style.
Wait. We've made a full circle. We've made a full circle to exactly why I was explaining why artists and scientists see the way they see. These are gifted people, perspective people.
You're gifted people, bro.